What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the channel. My name is Brian, and this is Talk Hard Podcast. So today, I want to talk about one word. I heard Tony Robbins use it, and it's in a three-way pattern that... Let's try this again, Chris. So today, what I want to share with you guys is something that has helped me completely transform my life, okay? I heard Tony Robbins say it on a podcast. I'll get into that in a minute. So before I do, if you would please just do me a favor, hit that like button, smash subscribe. It really helps the algorithm. It'll help us grow because in 2024, we have some really big plans. So if you would just do me that favor, I greatly appreciate it. Go ahead and hit that subscribe button. Go ahead and hit that like button. Go ahead and leave a comment down below if you like what we're talking about. Leave a comment down below if there's something else you would like me to discuss or bring into the platform, or something that you are possibly struggling with or just curious about. The whole point of the podcast for 2024 is for me to add as much value as I can to as many people as possible. I spent 20 plus years on drugs. 11 of those were heroin, meth, and some pretty hardcore things. And over the past 6 years, I have completely transformed my life. I am a new man. I am a new person. And in creating these things, through all of these things that I have learned over the past 5 or 6 years, I have really got this new hunger to want to share this with others because I came from such a dark place. When you are deep in the drug madness, you really have some insane thoughts. There were moments when I felt like that God wanted me to kill myself. There was moments where I really just didn't understand what was going on with life. I felt very defeated. I had zero drive, zero motivation. I was just kind of skating through, and I was stuck in this thought pattern that I was really trapped in. So today, what I really want to talk about is patterns and how to understand them, what you need to do to change them, and how just simply understanding one word, patterns. Everything on the universe has a pattern. And when you can follow these 3 steps, it's kind of 4, but in the reality of it, it's 3. The 4th one is something that I use in order to help create the change that I'm looking for. But what I'm first going to focus on is these 3 different types of what you do for patterns, and then how you can use that to transform your own life. So I once heard Tony Robbins say that everything in the universe has a pattern. And in order to help create great change in your life, what you want to focus on is first the pattern recognition. You first need to understand patterns that are happening specifically in your own life, but in the way that I did it was I started noticing the patterns of other people. I started noticing the repetitiveness of certain things, and it really helped me start to understand people in a different way. Understanding certain days when they would be upset, certain days when they weren't, what motivated them to change it, and what it all looked like. And so when you're trying to recognize your own patterns, what I did at first was I simply used a journal, okay? You need to think about the things that you're thinking about. The more you spend time in your prefrontal cortex or your conscious mind, the more you are going to be able to think about the things that you're thinking about. And so I want you to write down your thoughts. Write down your thoughts. And if you listen to the last podcast, something else that I used in that was a lot to do with patterns. So write down your thoughts, okay? Look for the pattern in your thoughts. Most of us have 70 to 90,000 thoughts a day, most of which, over 80%, 90%, are the same thoughts that they were yesterday. But it goes even deeper, right? You typically will get up right around the same time. You will typically go do the same thing. For a lot of you, I know it's grab your phone. Definitely something I would change going into 2024. The only reason I grab my phone in the morning is because I don't want it to wake my wife up. I wake up at 4 o'clock. I always wake up before my alarm because I have taught my brain into a new pattern of the way that I want to serve my life. But anyways, you all have a pattern, right? And this pattern is what is actually creating your world. And what is going on outside of you, for most of you, is what is dictating your personality. In reality, when you can adjust this pattern, then your personality will actually create your personal reality. And in fact, that's actually what's happening, just most people are struggling to understand that. So in order to understand pattern recognition, you first want to find your own patterns. What are the patterns that you have? Which ones are serving you and which ones are keeping you enslaved? What thoughts are you using to get through your day? Are they thoughts like, today's gonna suck, it's Monday? I can't wait for the weekend. All of these things that you're just reaching for and grasping for are not serving you. So my patterns every morning consist of making sure I wake up before my alarm goes off, because that means I am in control of my body. That means I am in control of when I want to wake up. I don't need a device to do that for me. I get to live my life my way. So I make sure that I wake up 4 o'clock every morning. I go out into the living room, turn on a meditation channel. I like guided meditations. It really helps me stay in the zone. There are times when I'll do them by myself. That is typically when I will like finish my shower with like a 5-minute meditation. But for a lot of things, I use guided meditation. And so through that guided meditation, that really has set my morning in the way that I want it to be. Now, what it used to be was wake up, leave myself just enough time to get straight into the shower, use that to try to wake myself up, make sure I shower, try to scramble and get my clothes together, warm up my car, I'm out the door. When you start a day with chaos, don't be surprised when your day is just completely filled with chaos, because that is how you have entered the day. You have brought this energy into the day. You have said, I'm here, let's just try to get through the day. And for me, that just doesn't make any sense. I'm not trying to just get through life. I'm trying to create my life. So if you are somebody that is like that, then notice those patterns. Okay, right now, just want you to write down those patterns. I want you to find the ones that are serving you, find the ones that are enslaving you. We'll get to those towards the end of this video, but right now, let's focus on the ones that are serving you. What patterns in your life are serving you best? And what patterns do you see in possibly me or somebody else that's an influencer, or just somebody else that you know in your life that you see has a pattern in their life that you genuinely would like to have? So after pattern recognition comes pattern memorization. The best way that I can explain this is, because most people know what the piano is this is very similar to the way a lot of people that don't have like a proper coach learn how to play the piano, because this is the most efficient and easiest way. You first start to just listen to the music. You recognize the patterns in the music. You know when the keys are hitting in certain tone, what sync they're going in, what's the rhythm, everything again. Everything has a pattern. The weather has a pattern. The wind has a pattern. If you set a speaker down there, the frequency of the tone will create a pattern in sand. Everything has a pattern. So I guarantee you have a pattern. So once you learn pattern recognition and you go into pattern memorization, you start to really focus more on your patterns that are serving you the best and really honing in on them and developing them in a new way while you're looking into somebody else's pattern that you aspire to possibly have a life like, right? It's still going to be your life. I have learned a ton from the internet. There's nothing wrong with it. So find somebody that has a pattern that you want to get into and then watch that pattern and really focus in on the things that they are doing, the language that they are using when they are speaking out to others and what they use for themselves, and the pattern of the things that they are doing, because a lot of them are very, very vigilant about their patterns. Okay. So after you've learned some pattern memorization by just really honing in on watching videos and really, I remember one time I watched Mel Robbins' podcast on, I believe it was Tom Bilyeu. I think I watched that about 19 or 20 times. Okay. To the point where I was like talking with the video, because I was so into her 5-second rule and her high five habits. Like I was really diving into this and I was really enjoying this. And so I was starting to use these patterns in my own life, right? So she has this thing of the high five habit. And so what I started doing every morning right before I would leave the house is I'd look myself in the mirror, say, you're a rock star, and I'd give myself a high five. Boom, let's start the day. Who doesn't enjoy a high five? You can walk up to a stranger on the street, you give them a high five, 99% of the time, they're going to join you in it and they're going to be like, whoa, what was that all about, right? Think about it when you've had it for yourself. I now use high fives with my team at work. I use them all the time. I love the high five habit. It is this celebration of just being in that moment, no matter what it is. Okay. So I started memorizing these patterns and repetitively watching what other people that were in a space that I wanted to be in, what were they doing? What language were they using? Even their body language, the way that they were speaking. Were they using their hands? Were they not using their hands? Certain people use these are mudras, and that is used in meditation. There's all kinds of different patterns that people use to develop their life in the way that they want, right? So after you've gotten through this pattern memorization, you're now going to go to, and again, I'm going to go back to playing the piano. So if you were learning to play the piano, you would first listen, right? I'm just going to recognize the pattern. You would listen to it so many times that you could literally play that song back in your head. And there has been actual data that has shown that when somebody starts practicing playing the piano and they get good at it, you can literally take the piano away from them and they can close their eyes. You could hook their brain up to a scanner and they could simply imagine, because they memorized this pattern, they could imagine playing the piano. And when you looked at it on a brain scan, it's identical, because that is the power of your imagination. So when you really hone in on these things, all right, thoughts become things. I'm telling you, this is more true than you could ever imagine. Thoughts become things, okay? After you've memorized the pattern, and if you're somebody that's into any type of instrument, then you understand this, because once you understand the pattern and then you go a little bit farther and you really dive deep, then you get into what's called pattern creation, okay? So pattern creation is when you have mastered your art enough to a point where you can now develop your own. This is where Mozart and other people really followed these steps and then created their own music. They understood how it happens, they memorized the way that it works, and then they created it in the way that they wanted it, right? So the pattern creation is really quite simple. You will understand that after you follow these first few steps with the patterns. But the biggest change for me, and something that I had to do a lot in the beginning, and something that I learned through NLP techniques, is called pattern interruption, right? I have had quite a life. I've been involved in drugs. I've been involved in some other dangerous situations when I was younger, because I was just being a kid. I've been in some bad relationships, and look, I'm not blaming any of my exes. It's not their fault. It's not my fault. We both played a part in it. But when you're really lost in trying to understand life, relationships can really be difficult. And so for me, it wasn't until I actually met my wife and I started to use this pattern interruption, because I have just bad thoughts. I've had bad experiences, and I had nothing else with data to actually back up what a new experience could look like. And so for a lot of you, when you're really struggling to get closer to someone, or really struggling to move forward, it's because you haven't quite had that experience yet. And I hadn't had it with my wife yet. I was still lost in these thoughts, and I told her that on our first date. I said, I have got some very bad trust issues, and I know that's not your problem. I know that it can change, because I believe that it's possible, and if you would allow me a space where I can walk myself through this, then I believe that our trust can be amazing. But I don't know how else to get that besides tell somebody about it and then ask them for that space. And my wife provided that space for me. God bless her heart, because I'm sure that wasn't easy. I would have these thoughts where if she was running late, or if something was happening, then all of a sudden either she had gotten in a car accident and I was just waiting for the phone call, or I'm not good enough, so she's probably off with some other dude, because who wants to be with a guy that comes from the past that I have and I hadn't developed yet. So I was still really struggling with feeling like I was enough. So my head would start to race. And the biggest thing I want you to understand with pattern interruptions is stop believing everything you think, because a lot of it isn't true. And I mean, a lot of it isn't true. And I know some of you understand that. Like your boss will be like, hey, we need to talk tomorrow. And you'll go instantly down the rabbit hole, right? What did I do wrong? What's happening? All of these negative thoughts come in, and then you go to work the next day and your boss just wants to sit down and talk about what's next. And you don't take the time to celebrate the fact that you were wrong. Instead, you're just like, whew, got past that one. And we just take it as like a survival mode, right? We don't acknowledge that we were wrong and celebrate it. When you can learn to celebrate how wrong you are about a lot of things and interrupt your patterns with things. So when I was probably 6 months into our marriage, I really started to understand that I needed to start interrupting my pattern. So when a bad thought would come up, I would validate it in my head, right? So she's running late. It's a car accident. Okay. let's just say that it is. What am I going to do about it? Like, I can't sit around and wonder if, so I just have to accept that if that's happened, I personally believe in God. I believe everything will be okay, and I need to let that power go. So I would have to talk myself through this and get back to my core beliefs and what I wanted for my life. And so I would literally interrupt the pattern by staying conscious in my thought and validating the truth. And then the moment that I heard from her, or she showed up at home, or whatever the case would have been, I celebrated the fact that I was wrong. I even shared it with her at times, like, man, I was down that rabbit hole and I was really being dumb. And so I took a moment to celebrate it and get vulnerable with her about what was happening, and just allow her the space to just see that change was happening. And then the more I celebrated this, and the more that I started to validate my thoughts, today those thoughts really don't exist. I can't remember the last time that I was concerned. She's left town and gone to cities that during a lot of this whole situation would be considered dangerous, and I was fine. 6 years ago, I'd have been a wreck. I'd have been not able to sleep, worried about stuff that was never going to happen, and completely giving up my power of life to something else that doesn't even exist. So through this pattern interruption, which is an amazing NLP technique, there'll be times when I'm sitting with a client and they will get lost in it, and I will do a number of things. And sometimes it's as simple as like, hey, where are you right now? What's going on? And when somebody kind of gets startled and they interrupt their pattern and they are forced to go back to their conscious mind, then it completely stops what's happening in that negative psychocybernetic loop, and it allows a space for new creation. So sometimes you're just going to have to talk to yourself. Like, knock it off, Brian. This isn't real. Why isn't this real? A, because I'm sure it hasn't happened yet. B, the chances of whatever I'm worried about happening are pretty slim, even though I have buried well over 100 people. I've had numerous horrible phone calls. I have had a lot of bad experiences. But just because something has happened doesn't mean it always will. The only reason that things continued to happen in my life was because I allowed the space for it to happen. I was allowing that to exist in my life because I wasn't doing anything about it. And the more that I have worked on myself, the less all these other shoes are dropping, right? For a lot of you, I'm sure when something good starts to happen, you instantly self-sabotage because you feel like if that other shoe is going to drop, I would prefer to be the one to drop it, because at least then I am in control. And all you are doing is controlling the negative loop inside of your head. You're just feeding the monster. You don't take the opportunity to just be vulnerable in the unknown and allow other space for new things to exist. Acknowledge that they exist, celebrate that they exist, attach that feeling, that emotion, that relief, that happiness, that dopaminergic rush that happens when you realize that you're wrong and that there are better things out there for you. So for me, I just talk to myself. I talk to myself all of the time. I know a lot of you do too, but you'll never admit it. Me, I don't care. I talk to myself on a regular basis because I want to work through the thoughts that I'm having, and I'm really wanting to understand how this is all working. And once you understand patterns and you start to see how things are happening, then we will be able to start diving into manifesting, right? That is pattern creation. Once you have really dug into understanding all of how it works, and really it's not that difficult, just sit back and watch for a little bit, okay? If you don't want to go through these steps, that's fine. I get it. Sit back and watch people, okay? You'll notice the same people on your drive to work because they're in the same pattern you're in, okay? You'll notice certain moods that your wife or husband are in at certain times, and you'll start to understand how it happened. And it's really easy if you just sit down and have a conversation. Hey, what happened today? Hey, what's going on? You'll notice patterns for things that bring back memories for people that happen on a regular basis, and you'll really start to see how all of this unfolds. When you can understand patterns for people at work, like there's that one annoying person that just doesn't toe the line or do enough work in your opinion, you will see the pattern. And when you can see the pattern and understand it and accept it, then it's a lot easier to just let it go because you understand that it's there. You're not taking it personally. You're just observing life, okay? So when you can really sit back and understand these patterns, and man, I feel like a broken record right now. I said patterns, I don't even want to know how many times. This is where life starts to get fun. When you really just take a minute If you're watching this video still, you're a real one. I love you to death. Thank you for sticking with this. There are days when my life almost doesn't feel real. The manifesting that is happening in my life is on such a great level. And I know that there are probably some people in there right now, because at first I had this little issue too, is if manifesting is so easy, then why haven't you just manifested $1 million for yourself? The truth is, it's just not how it works, okay? In order to manifest something, you have to believe it is possible. I don't believe that money comes easy. It's not in my core. Money comes from what most people would call hard work. I don't consider what I'm doing right now as hard work. I just did however many hours at work, 8, 9, 10. I don't really pay attention anymore. And then when I get home, sure, I could be lazy. I could go jump into Netflix and chill. I could just dive into the lost world of cat videos, right? But I'm passionate. I'm passionate about people. I'm passionate about learning about this. And when you have a brain like mine that does 6 million miles an hour all the time, the greatest feeling you can ever have is being in control of that. So manifesting is really about the things that you think about become the things that you see, that you understand. It's a thing in your brain called the reticular activating system. And what it does is it tells you where to focus your energy. And I'm sure you guys have heard this before, okay? You'll go buy a new car. You hardly ever saw that car. And then all of a sudden, as soon as you buy that car, it's like everybody has one. It's like that car dealership just had this massive sale and everybody in your town bought one, which is completely not true. Those cars were always there. You just don't have the time to think about everything. If I asked you what was the color of someone's shoes at work, you wouldn't notice it. But if I said tomorrow, I want you to find as many blue shoes as possible, as you were focusing on different people's shoes, you'd start to notice A, a lot more blue shoes than you've probably ever seen, and B, you'd be able to know, you would know what other people are. But then if I said, well, who just got a haircut, or who was wearing their gold watch, you'd be like, it's because you weren't focused on that. You only have enough capacity in your brain to focus on certain things, and your brain is lazy. So your brain just wants to kick into autopilot. You've built this program. It's gotten you this far, so it really mustn't be that bad. But I don't believe that's what you genuinely want out of life. I know so many people that have just accepted settling, and I don't believe that they're genuinely in a state of joy. There may be the exception to the rule. Actually, I know there's the exception to the rule, and my heart goes out to you, and I love the fact that you're in that space in your life, because as long as you're happy, as long as you are feeling joy, then everything's good. For me, manifesting will be the next step. It'll be the video that we come into soon, and I will show you how this manifesting works for me, and you genuinely start to feel like you're actually creating life. So I've been speaking with someone at work. If she's watching this, you know exactly who you are. And we've been talking a lot about manifesting, and just the other day I said, well, if you were to wake up in the morning and write down red car, red car, red car, red car 10 times, and then you were to think to yourself, man, if I made $100 for every red car I saw, that would be amazing. And then as you're driving to work, it'll seem like there are countless amounts of red cars. And you're like, whoa, they were always there. Because now that you know you're there, if you continue that process, you'll see the pattern of the same people that were going to work. There will be some outliers, but it will be like all of a sudden red cars are everywhere. They just did a special sale on red paint and everybody went and got it done. That's not true. They were always there. You've just learned a new way to focus. So anyways, I'm talking to this girl at work. We're talking about manifesting, and 2 days later, she sends me a text. It's talking about red cars. It's talking about thoughts become things. And it's talk about manifesting your life and how to control and understand your life. So as we go into manifesting during the next video, I'll cut this one off here. And again, if you're still with me, I love you to death. Thank you so much. Please comment down below. Reach out to me. You can reach me, brian@gglifecoaching.com or fans@talkhardfans.com. Reach out. I want to do more videos. I want to understand my audience more. I really want to get connected and understand this. And I have coaching packages. We can talk about that another time. But anyways, when you really start to understand manifesting, here's the one thing that I will share with you right now. You are manifesting your crappy life right now. So if you feel like your life isn't where you want it to be, if you feel like your life sucks, it's because all you do is think about and complain about and get all negative about how much it sucks. You don't leave space for new opportunities because you're so focused on how much it sucks that you can't see the opportunities. You don't just get opportunities. You put the energy out there for them, you create them, and then you will drag them to you. But if you're not in that space first, it is not going to happen. So let's focus on writing down our thoughts, learning our own patterns, memorizing the patterns that we really enjoy, and staying hyper vigilant and focused on those things. And then moving on to memorizing your own patterns that are serving you and how you can make them better, new people's patterns, such as mine or somebody else's. And if you would like to dive deeper into patterns, I would totally go into this farther. Then you'll go into pattern creation. And to have your pattern creation, you may need to learn pattern interruption. If you find yourself stuck in these same thoughts and you don't know what to do about them, have a conversation with yourself. No one is around. No one cares. No one will even know. And even when they do, I had my wife was following me a couple years ago, and I was talking to myself, and she called me. She was like, "Who are you talking to?" Because I was in it. And I was like, myself, right? And she just kind of giggled and was like, "Yep, makes total sense," because it's normal. Most people talk to themselves, and you are going to need to talk to yourself, because when you talk to yourself, then you force yourself into your conscious mind. And when you're in your conscious mind, this is where you reprogram your unconscious. You need to spend enough time in your conscious mind, hyper focused on the things that you want, the patterns you want to create, the patterns that are serving you, interrupting the patterns that aren't serving you with truth, and celebrating the fact that you're wrong, and then moving into creation. And I'm going to tell you right now, at first, this is going to be very uncomfortable. That means something great is happening. The other day, most people would call it a bad day. I went to work, people weren't there. I had to go do a lot of physical stuff. As I'm going through that day, a lot of the things at the jobs just weren't really clicking. I get home, my dog has ripped down the trash can. There's coffee grounds in it and feet print everywhere. I get done with that. I go in my room and I hear something. I look to my left, not paying attention. When I look back to my right, I kick my door. And I don't know if anybody can see this, but I cracked myself in the head. Most people would just throw up their hands and be like, "That's it, I give up, this day sucks." For me, I laughed. I just was like, okay. All that means to me is my body, my energy from 37 years of negativity every now and then just pushes back, and it kind of takes over. And these things happen to make me aware of the fact that I need to jump back into my conscious, because greatness is coming. And so I just laugh, and I thought it was hilarious. And then as I'm working with other people and doing more things, and I'm starting to see manifesting happen in their life, I get a dopamine rush that I have never felt. And I have quite literally done every drug on the planet. I'm not proud of that. I just am telling you from experience that the dopamine rush that I feel, the natural rush, the real rush, the high that God intended for you, is way better than any drug you can ever imagine. And it is euphoric, and it keeps me in this state of joy, so that even when a bad day, I say this because I don't consider it a bad day, but most of you would, happens, I enjoy it. I just was laughing like, yep, just need to step back in. Everything's good. I had a nice little headache, saw a few stars, but I was ready to rock. And I want you to be ready to rock too. So let's stay in this. Let's dive deeper. My wife and I are going on a trip. I'm actually going to record that podcast, so that should be next week. We had a conversation. This is like our time, but I have shared what we're doing with people. So every year we take a trip in January, and we go kind of off the grid. We're going out into the cabin in the woods, and we just sit down with each other, and it's like, what do you want? What do you want this year? What do I want this year? What do we want this year? What does that look like? What are the goals? When do we want to accomplish them? Map it out. When you get vigilant about your life, and I know there are people out there that have kids, and I understand there are people that may be considering themselves too busy with work. It really doesn't take that much time. When you create time for things, you will understand that time is available, okay? When you stop letting life take over you, then you will start to understand that you can create anything you want, you can create any space you want, you can create any time you want, but you have to actually try. And so if you will just try, we will dive into this in the next video after we get everything out there and get set up. And it'll help you understand why my life is this way, why I wake up every day and genuinely feel connected to God for me, and genuinely feel connected to the universe, and genuinely know that I am manifesting something great. I know that 2024 is just going to be another good year for me, no matter what happens. When challenges happen, I smile, okay? And I want this space for you too. So if you'll just stick with me through this, if you will comment down below, share your thoughts. Haters, you're welcome too. I'm going to say this in every video. You can go on and hate. I'll dive into some basic conversation with you, but I'm not going to entertain silliness. Okay. I am all for the fact that I don't believe that I am like everything for life. I am everything in my life, and that is all that matters to me. So there's really nothing you can say that'll change that, but I'm willing to get into the conversation about it. For the people that want to know more and that are genuinely watching this channel and supporting this channel, I love you. Thank you so much. Comment down below. Tell me what other things you would like to hear about, and I will dive into back and forth conversation with you, or we can jump into an email. We can schedule a call. There's a lot of different ways that we can do this. But this year I am focused to really genuinely helping people create change. And what I said in the last was I was going to change 1 million lives, and then I changed my mind because I'm willing to bet I'm pretty close already. So now I want to change 10 million. And then we're just going to see where it goes from there, because the goal needs to be something that is just out of reach and keeps you driven, but not so far out of reach that you quit before you even start, and not so easy to attain that you really don't have to create much change. So thank you guys for today. These videos are going to get a little bit longer. If you watch some of the last ones, they were like 15 minutes. I think this one's going closer to a half hour. Let's create a new world together. All right. Energy is contagious. Positivity is contagious. Nothing will ever get better until we create change in ourselves. And when you create change in yourself, the whole entire world will feel different. I promise you that. Thank you very much. Have an amazing day. Love you. See you.